Hi guys, welcome to our fifth part of the Ivinson Mansion mini tours. Today we'll be exploring the Maids Room as well as the guest and maid's bathroom. So this is the Maids Room. When the Ivinsons first moved in here, they had a live-in maid who happened to be Sarah Tobro. And one thing that's interesting to note is that the Maids Room is right next door to Jane and Edward's room. There are two ways to look at that. One thing is the close proximity to the Ivinsons' bedrooms kind of shows a high regard for the domestics. Another way to look at it is that she was much closer to them and could be at their beck and call almost instantly. So there are a few different perspectives to see. It seemed from past stories I've heard from people who are descendants of maids or who are maids themselves that the Ivinsons were quite fair but very strict. So younger girls who came to work for the Ivinsons may have found it difficult work because Jane was pretty strict in what she expected. I've also heard that they were also very fair, they paid well and treated their servants fairly. So we've set up some small vignettes of some of the ladies we know who served as maids. The first one we'll talk about is Sarah Tobro. She was born in 1860 in Namsos, Norway. Her mother died while they were very young, 1863 I believe, and her father was listed in the 1880 census of Wyoming, living in a tie camp in Carbon County, along with her older brother. There's a personal correspondence between Sarah, her sister Jenny, and their father, suggesting that they come live in Laramie for work. So sometime between 1889 and 1891, Sarah and her sister immigrated from Norway to Laramie, Wyoming, and shortly after, Sarah was employed by the Ivinsons as a maid. We don't know exactly when. The 1890 census was burned, so we have lost that information completely. So we use a lot of oral history to try and determine some of these dates. Anyways, Sarah Tobro was regarded very well by the Ivinsons. One reason we believe that is in 1902, the Ivinsons gifted her with a pocket watch. And it says, Sarah Tobro from Mr. and Mrs. Ivinson, Christmas 1902. My theory is that that was a 10-year gift, which would indicate that she started working for them in 1892. Sarah worked for the Ivinsons until 1914. We weren't sure if she saved up her wages or if the Ivinsons gifted her a decent sum of money, but she retired in June of 1914 and moved to Oregon where she worked on an orchard. 1915, a year later, there was a notice in the newspaper that she married her longtime love, George Sorensen, who also lived in Laramie, Wyoming. The second servant we'll talk about is Borghild Williams Dolan Mackey. She was born in Freya, Norway in 1899. Her family immigrated to Laramie in 1906. She didn't begin working for the Ivinsons until after Jane's death in 1915. We don't know exactly when she began, but we do know it's very likely that she worked somewhere up until 1920 or 1921, which is when she met her first husband. She had a very troubled marriage, and so her husband ended up moving out. And one of the ways that she supported herself and her family, because she had 4 children, was by bootlegging. In the second photo here, you'll notice her second husband. His name is Wayno Mackey, and he worked for the railroad. They fell in love sometime during the late 1920s and were married. He became the father to her children and lived a long life until she passed away in 1971. Here's another story of an Ivinson maid and people from the past. This story is paraphrased from Ted Olson's book, Ranch on the Laramie, about his mother, Bertha Olsen. Bertha Johnson was born in Solien, Norway, June 9, 1861. She lived with her family working on a farm. It was difficult to support the entire family, so she was sent to town to apprentice as a seamstress. Stories of America were told, and she was taken by the seductive tales of golden green forests, a literal translation of a Norwegian phrase. In 1883, at age 22, she took a ship with a large group of 20-year-olds. Later, she suspected that the man who sold these stories of America was actually an agent who was awarded a large sum. When she and the other Norwegians made it to America, they were put on a train and taken not to Minnesota or Wisconsin like so many others, but to the Rocky Mountains. Bertha found work at Virginia Dale, Colorado on the Overland Trail line and eventually made her way to Laramie. In Laramie, Bertha continued in service and worked as a maid for the Ivinsons. In 1888, she married Hans Olsen, who worked as an engineer for the Union Pacific Railroad and operated a ranch in the Big Laramie area in Albany County. Hans died in 1911. Bertha and her sons worked the ranch until 1917, when she sold the ranch and moved the family into Laramie. Bertha died February 7, 1947. One object of interest that came from Norway with Bertha Olsen was this beautiful trunk. It was made in 1799, and as you can see, it has some beautiful rose mowing on it, which is a traditional type of painting done in Scandinavia. So this is the guest bathroom. It was also used by the maids. As you can see over here, we have this odd door, which seems to lead to nowhere, but in fact it would open up to a balcony, and it was used by the maid to shake out linens from dust and other debris. This bathtub over here we believe to be an original to the bathroom. So over here on this sink, you'll notice we have some hair doing implements. We have these out here to honor the girls' school. We have oral histories of many of the girls getting ready for parties and dances in this room. You'll notice here this pile of leather hair curlers, which they use to curl and then tie their hair up into great curls.
Thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed our 5th video for the week. If you liked our video, please like us, and if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to ask. Have a great weekend!